Now, I want to talk about what recently went down in Wisconsin, because in a lot of ways, democracy was just restored. And so before I go into the history of this, I want to talk about where we are right. So what recently just happened. So Wisconsin had crazy gerrymandered maps for a long time. And now recently, we've just gotten new maps ordered by the Supreme Court that are now going to be more of a 50-50 split between Republicans and Democrats. So both Republicans and Democrats can have a chance to win the legislative branch of the Wisconsin government. So now I want to take you on this long journey of how we got here and how democracy died in Wisconsin, which I think is actually the name of an Atlantic article written.
Really?
I didn't read it for this podcast, but I think I remember reading that a few years ago.
Okay.
How democracy died in Wisconsin. Anyway, so since 2010, Republicans have had total control of the Wisconsin legislature. I'm going to focus really on the Wisconsin Assembly, not the state Senate for this, okay? But this is not because Republicans were so popular in Wisconsin. Keep in mind, Donald Trump won Wisconsin by 0.07% in 2016.
Wow.
Biden won it by 0.06% in 2020.
Wow.
It's a very close state.
Wow.
So you would expect the state assembly to be relatively close, right? Well, it's not. In 2018, Democrats won 53% of the popular vote for state assembly races. Republicans won 45%. Who do you think won the House? Who do you think won the assembly? The Republicans did. Republicans won the assembly with 45% of the vote. And they didn't just win it by a little, they won it by a lot. They had 63 seats compared to the Democrats' 36.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You want to talk about gerrymandering? This is insanity. So a +8 result for the Democrats resulted in a minority of like 18 seats.
That's wild. This gerrymandering capital of the country.
So then how did it happen? How do we get these crazy gerrymandered seats? Well, on October 1st, 2018, there was a nonpartisan election for a Supreme Court seat. Now, in Wisconsin, they don't appoint Supreme Court justices like we do on the national level in the federal government. They elect them statewide. So a conservative judge won this seat 51 to 49%. And the Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce poured so much money into the seat because, the capitalist class knows how much these Supreme Court seats really matter. Okay. So this entrenched conservative power in the Supreme Court in the state. This is what made the conservative Supreme Court powerful enough to get what they needed done going forward. Okay. This nonpartisan election. On November 2008, Obama gets elected. And because of this, Democrats down ballot ride his coattails and they take over the assembly. They take the state Senate. But immediately following Obama's election, there's a massive conservative reaction. And this is when we get the 2010 midterm elections. The 2010 midterm elections is known as the Tea Party Revolution across the country. Republicans gain 60 plus seats in the House of Representatives. They gain a bunch of Senate seats. They win governorships in blue states, one of which was Wisconsin. Scott Walker becomes the governor of Wisconsin, getting 52.25% of the vote, and the Republicans take the assembly. Okay? Now, this gave the Republicans the crucial power of controlling the redistricting process that takes place every 10 years following the census. So every 10 years, we take a census of the country, and then we draw our maps in which we base our representation on based on that census. And so Republicans now had control of that process. And so legislative hearings on the map were held July 13th, 2011. Now, Marquette law professor Richard Eisenberg testified to these maps, and she said that they would not be able to withstand any legal challenge. She said they were so gerrymandered that there's no way that these would stand any legal challenge.
Okay.
In Wisconsin law, you're not allowed to gerrymander. They have rules against it in Wisconsin Constitution.
Okay.
There's a constitutional amendment that makes gerrymandering practically illegal. You have to do it by some crazy means if you want to make it legal.
Okay. And this is like super clearly gerrymandered.
Yes, that's what she was
horrifically
saying.
clear.
This is so clearly gerrymandered that this is obviously unconstitutional.
Okay.
Right? They need to be like specific amount of compact and whatever. If you're interested in elections, you'll know what I mean by that. If not, then take my word. Democrats called the plan just totally unconstitutional power grab, right? They're like, the process moved way too quickly. It was like 20-something days that they drew the maps and wrote them up, okay? And so Democrats are like, wait a second, you didn't consult us at all. You drew them way too fast. You totally obviously broke the law. But Walker disagrees. Scott Walker comes out and he says the maps passed by the legislature meet the criteria laid out by the courts, including communities of interest, fair minority representation, and compact contiguous districts. So now he's using the constitutional language to try to justify the maps.
Yep.
Right? He's pulling language out of the Constitution in public support of the maps to try to make it seem, if this ever goes to a court of law, that, look, no, we were constitutional about it. We even said so in our public briefings.
It's a smart move.
It's a smart move.
Yeah.
But this didn't stop the legal challenges. A group of citizens asked a federal judge in 2011 to throw out the new maps approved by the legislature, allegedly that they violated both the state and U.S. constitutions, as well as the Federal Voting Rights Act. Now, the Federal Voting Rights Act is the one that gets the big focus in this one here, because there was a split in a Milwaukee near Milwaukee that underrepresented Hispanic community.
Okay.
Right? They split the Hispanic community down the middle, and so it was 2 Republican seats instead of what could have been 1 Hispanic blue seat. Okay. So in mid-November, the 5 Republican U.S. House members actually filed paperwork to intervene in the case to protect their own interests. So now we have U.S. House of Representative members getting involved in this court battle. The Democrats come in, and now they join the fight, and now it's this massive partisan battle between federally elected Republicans, federally elected Democrats, and so a 3-judge panel is appointed. Now, this 3-judge panel is going to preside over the whole process here because it's getting crazy. And then in this process, during discovery, the 3-judge panel finds a letter that was written to Republican lawmakers that read specifically, and I quote, "Public comments on this map may be different than what you hear in this room. Ignore the public comments." So Republicans were writing to each other, flatly admitting that what they were saying to the public was lies.
Yes.
They were flatly admitting this.
Yeah. That's wild.
They knew the validity of the maps and the fairness of these maps were in question, and they were lying to you when they told you that it was fair. Scott Walker going up and giving you his fancy constitutionally appropriate language, he knows it's all a lie. It's written that they knew it was a lie.
Yeah.
So the 3-judge panel actually ended up upholding the maps. This is due to those Supreme Court elections, right? Because now it's a conservative people who are appointing these judges. But point is, the one thing that they did win out of this was a new Hispanic district coming out of Milwaukee. Okay. So that what I mentioned before about the voting rights district, the Democrats got one more thing out of Milwaukee. This didn't stop the Republicans. They tried to appeal this, but the Democrats ended up winning this. They got the Hispanic district in Milwaukee. So now, quickly, I want to go into what Republicans did with this majority. Republicans now had basically super majorities in every legislative body. They had the governorship. What did they do with it? What did they do with all the power that they got, that they stole? Well, they decreased the amount of government workers' pay by an enormous amount. They cut education by billions of dollars over the course of Scott Walker's administration. They cut university funding. They signed right-to-work legislation for private sector unions after Scott Walker promising that he was not going to pursue right-to-work legislations for private sector workers. He did it anyway because he needed their votes. And so he was playing on their conservative social agenda of being against gay marriage to get them to vote for him, and then he stabs them in the economic back with right-to-work legislation that no union man would support under any circumstance.
Yep.
So that was what they did when they finally got the power in Wisconsin. Now, Scott Walker was finally defeated in 2018, and this is when the story takes a turn. Tony Evers beat Scott Walker 49.5% to 48.4%, a very, very close election.
Yeah.
But Evers is able to eke it out. And because of this, the tides finally start changing. And what's happening here is political alliances are shifting. We're going to get into this later in the show, but political alliances in Wisconsin started shifting, and Democrats started winning the higher turnout voting populations, such as college-educated voters, and Democrats started to become very strong in nonpartisan, low-turnout special elections.
Yep.
Because now Democrats are winning college-educated people. Those are the people who vote in April. Those are the people who vote in the primaries. These are the people who are going to help you win the Supreme Court. And so this is what Democrats start doing. In 2018, a progressive gets elected to the bench in 2018. In 2019, progressives hold a seat. In 2020, progressive Jill Karkovsky defeats conservative incumbent Daniel Kelly. Now, what's notable about this guy, Daniel Kelly, is that he was appointed by Scott Walker. He didn't win any election to get there. He was appointed because of an early retirement. So now he faces election and he loses. And so that's a flip, right? Then we have progressive Janet Prasteyowitz.
Ooh, I don't know, man.
Yeah, whatever. Janet. Janet, she is recent. She got elected in April 2023. She's actually one of the first. We talked about her on one of the first episodes of our show.
Okay.
She beat Daniel Kelly by 11 points, kicking his ass.
Yeah.
And so Janet ran much of her campaign specifically on fighting for fair maps. She said that we were not going to see the type of 2020 gerrymander into the next decade. She said this specifically on the campaign trail. And Democrats were able to clean the clock since 2018 of every Supreme Court election, winning every single one up until now. And because of that, in a 4-3 decision on December 22nd, the Wisconsin Supreme Court held that Wisconsin's voting maps as currently drawn violate the state's constitution and must be redrawn in time for the 2024 election. The current maps were instituted by the court in 2022, which was then controlled by 4-3 conservative majority. Now that it's switched, these maps are done. So Tony Evers has passed new maps. These maps have 45 Republican-leaning districts and 46 Democrat-leaning districts. 8 are going to be toss-ups in the assembly. Now, Republicans ended up having to vote for this plan. They didn't have a choice because, they control both both legislative branches in the House and Senate. But these were the only options they had.
Wait, what do you mean since they controlled both houses, they had to vote for this plan?
So Tony Evers went to the court. The court said you have an option of 8 plans.
Okay.
Republicans picked the most non-liberal of those 8 plans.
I see. Okay.
Those are the only ones they were allowed to pick from.
Okay.
That was it. That was the best they could have gotten.
Okay.
That would have coincided with the Supreme Court decision. So these 8 toss-up seats are going to decide basically every Wisconsin election going forward. And the fact that now both sides can win majorities means there will be a healthy democracy in Wisconsin for the first time in 14 years about.
It's a very happy ending.
It is actually a happy ending, to be honest. It's a good feeling. It makes me it makes me happy that the institutions are strong enough to correct themselves.
Yeah. Even if it takes 15 years.
Even if it takes 15 years to restore democracy to a state in the United States of America.
Yeah.
But it's just a good feeling to get that. And now Wisconsin can make some really amazing changes. With Minnesota, with a very, very slim majority, has been kicking ass with progressive legislation.
Yeah.
Getting free lunches and free breakfast to children.
Yeah.
Getting good zoning, housing reform done. Michigan has repealed right to work, something that Wisconsin most certainly will do if they get Democrat majorities, which is now absolutely possible.
Yeah.
They could repeal right to work. I think Michigan is the only state in the history of America to repeal right to work.
Wow.
And so now Wisconsin could be number 2 if Democrats take back the legislative branches.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this?
I think it's nice to see that when something sucks, we can fix it.
Yeah, that's a great way. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that.
And I like that, it doesn't make me feel like Democrats are the bad guys. It's like Democrats didn't just swing it completely to their side. They actually made it democratic.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I will say, listen, they couldn't swing it to their side if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. Because then they would have gotten screwed by their court. Right. So there was a healthy balance. And because of that healthy balance, bam, we have democratic maps now.
Yeah.
And not big D, lowercase d.
Yeah. I'm happy about it.
Very happy.
Cool.